everyone. This is John Daly. I'm here again with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
So far, so good, John. How about you?
Doing good, thank you. Well, a lot has happened since last we talked. Joe Biden is no longer running for re-election. He dropped out, and his vice president, Kamala Harris, is now the presumptive Democratic nominee. It'll be official at the Democratic National Convention here in a few weeks. So let's talk about the current state of the race. Trump had been leading Biden, including in important swing states, but Harris has really, at this point anyway, sort of pulled even with Trump, or perhaps even a little ahead of him, depending on which poll you're looking at. Trump is now also the old man in the race, which of course had been Biden's big liability. Bernie, what kind of shot do you think Harris has of going all the way?
Let me start out, John, by saying I am not making any predictions. That's because none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone what's going to happen in the coming months between now and November. We don't know. So making a prediction it doesn't make any sense to me. But I am going to say this. If Donald Trump continues doing what he's doing, he continues the name calling Kamala Harris stupid, low IQ, lunatic, evil, garbage. If he continues calling Kamala Harris all those names, and she doesn't do anything really, really, really dumb, Donald Trump is going to lose the race, because that kind of talk, while it invigorates the MAGA crowd, which he doesn't need, they're going to vote for him no matter what. It alienates the people he does need, and those are the moderate voters, the undecided voters in key battleground states. So if he continues the insults because somehow he thinks it's funny or whatever, she's going to win this race. That's not a prediction. It's what I'm saying. I want to be very clear. It's not a prediction, because what I am saying is, if he doesn't start acting in his own best interest, he will hand Kamala Harris the election. I don't want to get accused of mispronouncing her names. Kamala Harris. I mean, if you call her, put her name with the wrong syllable, you're accused of being a racist. So it's Kamala Harris.
So do you think, just to play devil's advocate, so back in 2016, Trump was saying all these same things about Hillary Clinton, and he ended up winning. What do you think is different this time that should compel him not to do what he did with Hillary?
I think there are two differences. One is that when he did it in 2016, he was new. It was sort of, not to me, but it was sort of amusing to a lot of people. It was, he's an entertainer. They've seen him, they've seen that it's nasty, it's not funny. And I don't think moderate voters like that. The second thing is, Hillary Clinton was immensely unlikable. I mean, it's just the fact, she was immensely unlikable. Kamala Harris doesn't come off the way the right wing thought she would come across. She's not doing the word salads anymore. She sounds intelligent. Her views are something else, but she sounds intelligent. She sounds friendly. She not only will, but she is winning back Black voters that were moving towards Trump, younger voters that were moving towards Trump, women voters she'll definitely pick up. So she's not Hillary Clinton. And that's a big statement. She's not Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump in 2024 is not Donald Trump, not perceived as the same Donald Trump as in 2016.
Yeah, I had been saying for really well over a year that if either party sidelined their top guy, whether it was Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and replaced that person with even just a generic candidate, that candidate would win big in November. What we have now is a little murkier situation than what I had in mind, because Kamala Harris isn't exactly a generic candidate. She's been the vice president in a very unpopular administration over the last 3.5 years. So she would be and is being saddled with a lot of Biden's baggage, which to some degree is fair. But still, the polls do show her edging toward at least front runner status if she's not already there. So like you, I absolutely think she can win, and also like you, I'm not predicting that she will win. A lot can certainly happen over the next 3 months, but this really doesn't this feel like a whole new race to you, Bernie?
Well, it is a whole new race in that this is going to sound obvious, but it's really important. He's no longer running against Joe Biden. That's the single most important thing I can say. When he was running against Joe Biden, he was almost certainly going to win because those moderate swing voters, the ones that will decide the election, even if they didn't like Donald Trump, they thought Joe Biden was incapable of being president for 4 more years, and they were willing to hold their nose and vote for Donald Trump. They don't have to make that choice anymore. Now they could vote for Kamala Harris. She's not Joe Biden. Again, I know that's obvious, but that's really important. Donald Trump doesn't have the leeway for mistakes that he did when he was running against Joe Biden. The margin for error has been cut down drastically now that he's running against Kamala Harris.
Let's talk, Bernie, about the mainstream media going forward. The press so far has been very accommodating to the Harris campaign. We're very excited about her candidacy. Journalists have been whitewashing a lot of her previously stated far left positions. They're downplaying her unofficial role as border czar. We all remember Biden had publicly put her in charge of the border issue a while back, and it's not exactly clear what happened after that, what Harris was actually doing. But Bernie, can we expect more help for Harris from the media over the next 3 months?
That's the $1 million question right there. If they continue to play her up and her past play that down, that's another reason that she could win the election. If they look, I watched Fox one morning this week, and there was a whole list of her positions. This wasn't right-wing propaganda. These were factual statements of her positions. If those statements are sent out to the vast electorate, she's going to have to defend them. And if she backtracks like, well, no, I'm for fracking now. Well, I heard you say you were against fracking. So were you against fracking when that was in your best interest? And now you're for fracking because now that's in your best interest? If they go down that whole list, that will not do her any good and will help Donald Trump win the election. But I don't know if they're going to do that, John. I just don't know if they're going to play the role of journalists or play the role of cheerleaders. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's one thing that really is damaging to Harris. So I have this theory, and I don't know if it's real or not, but I've always gotten the impression of Harris, she's not really this left-wing ideologue, and that she's more of sort of an empty suit, and she'll say whatever it takes to whatever audience she needs to convince to support her. She'll fold, and I think we're already sort of seeing that now. One thing that really hurts her is during the 2020 Democratic primary when she was running for president. We all remember we both wrote, columns about this at the time, but all these candidates really seem to be trying to outbid each other as far as how hard progressive they could all go. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, does everybody really believe what they're saying? And then I think some of the candidates that were running sort of, I think, kind of understood that they were kind of scaring people, so they started ratcheting things back up. But do you think Harris is an ideologue, or do you think that she'll just say whatever she needs to say?
I'm tempted to say a little of both. I certainly think the latter. I certainly think she'll say whatever she needs to say to win. I don't know what her core beliefs are. If I had to guess, I'd guess they are progressive, but I think she'd throw progressivism under the bus if it means furthering her own chances of winning. But if Donald Trump and his surrogates can point out what you just did, that she's not authentic. Voters don't like inauthenticity. They don't like that. She doesn't believe in anything. But if they could do that without calling her a lunatic and a low IQ person and evil and garbage and all that, that's a good counterattack on Kamala Harris. That's a very good counterattack. But if they do that and say, look, she believed all this and now she believes all this, she's a lunatic, she's a piece of garbage, fire her. No, it isn't going to work. And you know why? Because issues aren't the only thing that matter. Personalities also matter. How you feel about somebody matters. That's really important, what I just said. So forgive me for not only putting it that way, but for repeating myself. How you feel about a candidate really matters. They may put aside her flip-flops if they think she's more likable, one of the most powerful forces in the universe, likability. If they think she's more likable than Donald Trump. If they think, well, she flip-flop, but don't all politicians flip-flop, and Donald Trump is just plain nasty. If they think that, she's got a good chance of winning and Donald Trump has a good chance of losing. But if they do what you were suggesting, point out in a grown-up, civil manner that she believed in all of these left-wing causes and beliefs that middle America don't believe in, and now she's taking the opposite position. You can't trust her on anything. That'll go in Donald Trump's favor. But I want to be very clear about this. I will never bet 10 cents on Donald Trump doing what's in Donald Trump's best interests.
One more point about the media, how they're conducting this. We've heard since the moment Biden dropped out from a lot of people, not just in the Democratic Party, also in the media, that this often repeated narrative that Joe Biden did something very heroic, courageous, and patriotic, and finally stepping down. But Bernie, I think you see things a little differently, don't you?
I do. And before we go after this, I want to say something about the vice presidential nominees. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats are saying Donald Trump was heroic, courageous. He did what was best for the country. This is beyond BS. I mean, if we weren't trying to be civil in this forum, I would say what BS really stands for. I mean, this is crapola of the first degree. If he dropped out without the pressure, if he said, you know what, I don't think I'm the best candidate to win, and I don't think Donald Trump should be president, I'm going to drop out. If he did this a year ago, 2 years ago, and I understand that you can't be a lame duck 2 years ago, but if he had done it more than 10 minutes ago, I'd say maybe he is heroic and courageous. He did this because they forced him out. They told him that if he doesn't get out, his legacy is going to be that he helped elect Donald Trump. That's going to be the extent, the beginning, middle, and end of his legacy. And he better drop out because they're going to hold him responsible if he doesn't drop out. He didn't do anything courageous. He didn't do anything noble. He dropped out because they threw him under the proverbial bus. He gets no credit for that, none. And yet, part of the deal apparently was, if you drop out, we'll say all these nice things about you. Fine, if you want to believe it, I don't care. But it's not true. He wasn't courageous. He wasn't honorable. He wasn't doing what's in the country's best interest. He was doing what was ultimately in his own best interest, dropping out so that his legacy wasn't that he was the guy that helped Donald Trump get elected, and they'll forget everything else that he supposedly did and wants credit for.
I think that's right. And I mean, the thing is, if Biden had been leading in the polls still, even just a little bit, despite all of these cognitive challenges that we've all seen at this point, he'd still be in the race right now. And he did everything he could to stay in, as long as he did, despite all of these issues and despite his poll numbers tanking, until someone finally got through to him, just a few months before Election Day. I mean, again, just to be clear, I'm certainly glad he got out. I think you probably are too. I think it would probably be best for the country if he left office early too. In the clips I've seen since that terrible debate, he's not getting any better, folks. but either way, this was not an example of courage. This was just politics. And what I see him, I see him as what created this was just his own selfishness. And part of me, he was being so selfish and really clinging to doing everything he could to stay in. It just like with you, it's just silly to now take a step back and say, wow, he really showed a lot of courage to do what he did. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, no. And the Republicans who are yelling, this was wrong. They forced him out. She didn't get any votes and now she's the nominee or the presumptive nominee. That's not fair. First of all, Republicans have no say in what Democrats do. Let's get that straight. And the only reason they're yelling bloody murder about the transfer of power to Kamala Harris is because they want to run against Joe Biden and not Kamala Harris. They're showing what's really on their mind, which is, now we're not running against Joe Biden. Now we don't have any room to screw up. That's why they're making a big deal out of the fact that she'll be the nominee without going out on the campaign trail and winning over any voters. None of their business. It's none of their business. Democrats can do whatever they want. Republicans could do whatever they want. If you don't like it, vote for the other people. But Republicans yelling about what Democrats did, no, sorry.
No, I agree. So Bernie, one last topic, and you brought it up just a minute ago. J.D. Vance. When Trump picked him as his running mate, a lot of political observers said that by choosing Vance, this loyal sycophant, he didn't really add much demographically to the ticket. They recognized that as a show of supreme confidence that Trump was going to defeat Joe Biden and that he didn't really need to draw in more electoral support or work on areas of the electorate that he was having trouble with. But now, as we've been talking about, Harris is in instead of Biden, and a lot of past sound bites from Vance, like his comments about childless cat ladies, are coming back to haunt him and to haunt the ticket. Bernie, do you think Donald Trump regrets going with Vance?
I don't know if he regrets it or not, but he should regret it. It was a bad choice. It was a bad choice for a couple of reasons. The childless cat ladies thing, that's big now, and it's going to remain big right through Election Day. That was really, really dumb, no matter how he meant it. That will offend not only women, it will offend anybody who's made a decision in their families, in their relationships, not to have children. It just stupid. And it was a bad decision because it didn't expand Donald Trump's reach. Donald Trump, look, let's go to an extreme that would never happen, and I understand it would never happen. Let's say he picked Nikki Haley. Okay, well, it was never going to happen. And I don't know that she'd accept if he offered it. But let's say he picked Nikki Haley. That would have been a brilliant choice because she would bring in a whole bunch of people who don't like Donald Trump, but like Nikki Haley. J.D. Vance isn't going to bring in anybody who Donald Trump didn't already have. Bad choice. But it was a bad choice for another reason. Whoever Kamala Harris picks as her VP will be a better choice for her than J.D. Vance was for Donald Trump. Whoever she picks, I don't care if she picks Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. I don't care if she picks the senator from Arizona. What's his name?
Kelly.
Mark Kelly. I don't think she's going to pick the governor of Minnesota. I don't see where that helps her at all. And he's a progressive in any event. Whoever she picks, the press is going to jump on that bandwagon just as they're understandably attacking J.D. Vance. They're going to coronate Shapiro or Kelly or whoever else it might be. And they'll make comparisons. Voters will make comparisons. Usually the VP pick doesn't count for much. It'll count a lot this time around. They'll say, is Shapiro better than J.D. Vance? Is Mark Kelly, military fighter pilot and astronaut, better than J.D. Vance, who also was in the military. Give him credit for that. He was a Marine.
Oh yeah.
I think it was a bad choice, and it will prove to be a bad choice.
Yeah, and I've seen some video. We're recording this on Tuesday, and I just saw some more video unearthed from on Vance. He's apparently been making a lot of comments about childless people, not just the cat lady stuff. Now there's a clip that came out where he's likening them to sociopaths and stuff, and you're just like, wow. But
John, this isn't going away. This is
no,
not. If I were running Kamala Harris's campaign, I would put this front and center every chance I got. They think you're a sociopath if you don't have kids. Don't you voters out there know people who've chosen not to have kids? Do you want women to have kids even if they're not married? You're against that too, Republicans, right? So do you want that? It's a loser. It's a loser. And Donald Trump, by the way, let me ask you a question.
sure.
Is J.D. Vance the candidate for all time? Donald Trump can dump him, you know.
Oh yeah, no,
Donald
it's funny. I talked to Matt Lewis earlier this week on that, and he's
Donald Trump can convince
I don't know
him
if Trump
to
will.
voluntarily drop out, right? Donald Trump can convince him to voluntarily drop out. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm asking you, what do you think?
Um, that's a good question because yeah, Donald Trump has shown this willingness to throw anybody under the bus. You know, these Republicans that have vowed loyalty to him, that have given up a lot of their own shame for him. He's perfectly at ease throwing them under the bus. I don't know. I talked to Matt Lewis about this on this website the other day and asked him that same question. And yeah, he's thinking no. He thinks that would be too much of a seen as too much of a defeat, even if Trump convinces Vance to act like it was his decision. But I don't know. I think he'll probably stay in, but at the same time, I'm not sure how surprised I would be if he threw him out. That's a good question. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. One point I was going to add is that Vance has been, as we've been talking about, he's been getting absolutely pummeled for saying these things. And honestly, I don't feel like a lot of what he's saying is nearly as controversial and offensive as a lot of things that Donald Trump has said over the years. But I've written about this phenomenon a few times. You know, despite being a top political figure in this country for almost a decade now, I think millions of Americans really refuse to hold Trump to political standards. They instead hold him to celebrity standards, which are quite a bit lower. He gets a pass on a lot of these things, not from the mainstream press, not from the liberal press, but a lot of Americans. But J.D. Vance now, I see him being held to political standards. He's not really a celebrity. He had, you know, that book and he had the movie, but he's not really viewed primarily as a celebrity. He obviously doesn't have the MAGA cult behind him 100%. And so his comments, by and large, seem to weirdly carry more weight than Donald Trump's do, at least politically. Do you see that do you agree with me on that, Bernie?
And I see the media coming in again and playing a very big role. It's not only that he has said things that aren't as outrageous as what Donald Trump has said. He has said things that arguably are not much more outrageous, or maybe not more outrageous at all, than some things that Kamala Harris has said. So the media will understandably jump all over J.D. Harris's childless cat lady remarks. But when Kamala Harris, you know, sets up a fund to bail out people who burned down or tried to burn down Minneapolis, well, that's not such a big deal to the media because they're on her side. So I think that's a factor too, how the media looks at the things he said versus the thing that she said. But here's how Donald Trump would be loath to throw J.D. Vance overboard because it might make Donald Trump look like he made a mistake. And that's Donald Trump can never make a mistake, as we all know. But Donald Trump can go to J.D. Vance and say, here's what you need to do. And understand how I mean what you need to do. And I'm not kidding. You need to do this. You need to say, I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to be a distraction because Donald Trump doesn't deserve me as a distraction. So I am dropping out. And then Donald Trump goes on stage someplace and says, He was a good man. He made a few mistakes, but now I'm picking General Petraeus to be my running mate. And all of a sudden you have a whole new campaign. Look, what have we had in the past month? We've had a debate in which we saw Joe Biden incapable of completing a sentence. We saw Donald Trump get shot. We saw Joe Biden drop out of a race. We saw Kamala Harris become the presidential candidate without garnering a single vote in the primaries. If J.D. Vance drops out, forgive me, I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to be shocked. It'll be just one more item on a long list of stuff nobody in his right mind would have predicted a month ago, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's just been an insane presidential season here. I'm curious, Bernie, if this were to happen, and I think you're right, I don't think it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. If J.D. Vance is told to step down, who do you think Trump would choose in his absence?
Well, I mentioned Petraeus just a few seconds ago, right?
You think Petraeus would agree to that?
No, I'm sorry. I'm getting two generals mixed up. Pompeo,
Pompeo, gotcha.
Mike Pompeo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean Petraeus.
Okay, yeah. When you said that, I was like, I don't remember that coming up, but maybe I missed something.
Thank you for correcting me before we went off the air.
Sure.
Mike Pompeo, he would be a good choice.
Okay. And
Nikki Daly would be a great choice, but can that happen? I mean, I know I just ticked off a whole list of things that nobody in his right mind would have thought could happen. President getting shot, you know, the guy dropping out of the race, a whole bunch of things. Is Nikki Haley out of the question? I'd say 99.9% yes, she's out of the question. Mike Pompeo's not out of the question. He'd be a good choice. Like that's just one name I'm picking out of the hat.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. I remember months back.
I lost your audio for a second.
What's that?
Your audio dropped out for a few seconds.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say a while back, Elise Stefanik was a name we heard a lot about. She clearly wanted the job, and it was strange. I actually thought Trump was going to pick a woman vice presidential running mate, and that the names being tossed around, you know, Haley is another one, just kind of fell off the side of the planet there. I'm not really sure what happened.
He should pick somebody not like him at all. Stefanik would be a bad choice. She wouldn't get one woman's vote that he's not getting now. She's a Trump woman. He needs a woman candidate who women and moderate voters can say, yeah, she makes a lot of sense. Suburban women could say, yeah, I could see voting for her. Moderate college educated voters in general could say, yeah, I could see voting for her. But if it isn't going to be that kind of woman, then Mike Pompeo would be a good choice.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what happens. Like you, I don't think it's likely Vance leaves, but there's probably a better chance of it than a lot of people realize. So, all right, Bernie. Thanks everybody for tuning in this week. Always leave your comments in the comment section. Bernie, would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, we live, everything we've seen in the past month has been so crazy. Crazy is not out of the question. That's my last comment. Crazy is still possible.
All right. We'll keep an eye on things. Thanks a lot, Bernie. You have a great day.
You too, John.